Now this is where the fun actually begins, and we actually generate our surfaces, and all the work that we've done heretofore really starts to pay off for us. So we've generated our patches, we divided them up. We generated our curves, I should say, and we divided them up to sort of create our what we're going to call our patch network. And now let's make some surfaces. Okay, let's turn this head off so that's not in the way. And the way that we're going to do that is that I'm going to make an extra layer down here. And I'm going to paint that layer red. Well, let's make it blue. Let's get some time for some blue. And I'm going to do all my transition areas, and I'm going to do these, and I'm going to run a surface patch through these. A surface patch is a patch, a single surface that's sort of trimmed by boundary curves. And the command is patch. And what you do is that you set the number of spans that you want to go through that boundary curve. And this is 20 by 20. And here we can preview that, and that looks good. And it's holding that shape fairly well, and that's nice, okay? And so we're going to come through here like this again. Select that boundary area, and you'll understand while I'm doing these first. Okay, and I'm going to right click again. Oops, cancel. I got to select my curves first. Don't get ahead of yourself, Scotty. Bring up my patch tool, and I'm going to patch that surface. Okay, and I'm going to select this one right here. Select that, and I'm going to run the patch through that, like so. Okay, and so I've patched all of the transition areas. Okay, now, and so I have all of those done. Now, one of the things that you might want to do, you notice that this square right here looks dark, and that one looks darker than that one. My directions might be off. Okay, so the normals are facing in the wrong direction. It might have something to do with the way that I selected my edges. But you can run the dir command, which shows you the normal direction, and sure enough, the normal's pointing in the wrong direction. I can flip that like that, and now it's pointing in the right direction. And here, I want to do a dir, and I'm going to flip that, and I want to make sure my normals are pointing in the right direction. This is dark on the inside, so I know that's good. That's dark on the inside, but let's take a look just in case. And that's pointing in the right direction. And let's look at that one. That's pointing in the right direction. Okay, and so all of these patches are done. Okay, now there are a number of different ways. In Rhino, there's always 2 or 3 ways to do the same thing. Okay, and you should get used to that. That there are always 2 or 3 ways to do things. So if you want to generate a surface, and it's always good when you have things in 4, when you have, because that's a NURBS patch. It's a 4-sided patch. It's a quilt. So anytime you can break things down to 4 edges, you got a lot of choices when it comes to surfaces. I'm going to show you 2. Okay, the first is a surface from 2, 3, or 4 edge curves. Okay, and so basically what I'm going to do in this case is that I'm going to select these edges right here. I'm going to select that edge curve. Anytime I can use an edge curve, I like that. I'm going to select that edge. I'm going to select that edge right there, and it builds the patch. It builds a surface patch in between that, okay? And let's try this. Try this again. Select that. We'll take the surface edge. We'll take the surface edge over here. We'll select that edge, and boom, it builds a patch. Now let me show you a little trick with that. If you select your edge curves beforehand, and I have 4 there, and then I right click, it builds it automatically. Okay. Now another way that we could also do this is to do a sweep 2. Okay. So with a sweep 2, we select a rail, and then we select a cross-section curve. And I'm going to use my surface edge there. and my surface edge there. Click there and it brings up this window, and there we go, we have our surface that's built there. Okay, and I can click again, rail, rail, section, section, and it builds a surface there, like so. Okay, and here I can do a similar thing, rail, rail, that surface edge there, and we do that, and then finally it becomes whatever floats your boat, whichever technique you're most comfortable that you like to use. Let's do a sweep 2 again, since it's that kind of season. And for old time's sake, let's select 1, 2, 2, 3, and 4. So we got 4 edge curves selected there, and let's go and let's make sure that that's selected. We'll find out soon enough, and we'll go into our bank from 3 or 4 edges, and we're good. Okay, now that looks good. It's facing in the right normal direction. This one feels a little dark to me, this surface right here, so let's do a DIR there. And that's facing in the wrong direction, so let's flip that out. Okay, and also let's check this one. That's facing in the wrong direction, so let's flip that out. That, and everything else looks good. Okay, and now that we have our surfaces joined together, surfaces all created, I'm going to turn off this layer that had my curves, and I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to join them together by hitting Control J, joining them together. And I can look at the underlying, I can actually look at this on top of the underlying geometry. And you can see that there. It's because you see some of these areas because they're lying and they're occupying the same surface space. But now the last step is to just take this, is to select this poly surface right here and do an offset surface. Offset surface, and I want to make sure that I choose solid and that both sides is set to no, and my distance is set to 0.25 in this case. And also, there we go, everything looks good, and we have our resultant object. Oops, there's something wrong. Solid was not selected. So let's try that again, and let's try offset surface. And solid, yes, was set to no. Let's set that to yes. And now we have our surface. Uh-oh, there's a problem here. Let's turn this off for a second. Let me pause. When you run into a problem like this where you have a surface here and a surface here, and you do a Control J, and for some reason they don't seem to join, okay, one of the first things that you should do is to look at the two surfaces like that, and the command that you should do, that you should go to, is join edge. And let me turn on my, go into my display, and I'm going to turn on my surface edges so that I can see my edges. And I'm going to select that edge right there, and I'm going to select the other edge that brings up this window, and it joins those two edges together. I'm going to right click here, select that edge there, select the other join edge there, and now those are joined together properly. Okay, so now that they're joined, I can go over to my layers palette, and I can now execute my offset surface is the command. And once again, solid yes, distance 0.25. Delete input, I'm going to set that to yes, but normally you're going to want to have that set to no unless you made a duplicate of this surface. And bam, voila, shazam, there we have our shell. There we have our shell. Now let's do a final check on this before we call it a day. And the final check is to make sure that we've maintained, that we have nice transitions between our surfaces. And the way that we do that is to go in and do an analyze surface, and we can do a zebra map onto our surface. We choose that surface and we run a zebra map, and we got really nice transitions there on our surface. Okay, you'd see a kink or things like that, discontinuities in the surfaces, and especially in the transitions, it looks good. You can also go into an analyze surface environment map and select that, and then you could go through and look at some of the different environment maps that would show you, like that's a really good one to look at, brush metal, so that you can see if there's any discontinuities in the surface, and everything seems to look pretty good, and we can throw it on top of the head like that and take a look at it. We see a lot more geometry because I turned my surface edges on. If I go into my display, and I would go up here and turn my surface edges back off, it would look something like that. But I think for rendering, you know, that looks kind of cool to have those two there. But that's a way that you can generate sort of like a strap or a shell that's based on an underlying surface. I hope you found this helpful. I certainly did. I certainly learned a lot doing this. Every time you do these processes, you learn something new. And in the course of doing this, I've came across some new ways that have helped to improve my workflow. So thank you. It's one of the joys of teaching.